Chapter 1. Family Living, Zambia, 1970s. My earliest memory. Zambia, Ndola, 1976. We wake up Shirley, 8, Daniel, 2, and my good self, 5. Dad is in a rage, screaming down the corridor with his famous white Y-fronts on. We have been robbed. They had cut through the bars on the window, entered our bedroom, stole Dad's keys, and made a break for it. 3 hours earlier, my mother... "Tony, I'm sick of these bloody dogs barking all night. Go and lock 'em up." Dad gets out of bed. "Oh, yes, dear." Dad now has a problem. Zambia is dangerous, and he knows this. They have his keys. They can steal the car, gain entry to the house. The rest doesn't bear thinking about. However, Tony is an electronics expert and doesn't suffer fools, or extremely dangerous robbers, lightly. Dad was no average man or father, for that matter. He was much, much more than the sum of his organic parts. His old Cumbrian nickname, the Firecracker, had been tested and proven many times. Dad wires the car up to the mains electrics, a shrill scream a couple of nights later. The car, still in situ. Problem solved. It's Africa in the 70s, that's the way it was. You couldn't take any chances, or you wouldn't survive. Many years later, in Bahrain, over a few beers, Dad tells me, "One time, we'd just finished a tough mission. They were a team of 6, raiding an arms cache, which turned out to be a bush hut occupied by 3 goats and a chicken that was evidently lost." Dad continues explaining. "I was exhausted and had fallen asleep on a makeshift chair. I woke up to one of the crew whispering, 'Tony, do not fucking move. Look down, but stay still.' I looked down, and joining me for my afternoon siesta was one of the fastest and deadliest snakes, a black mamba, coiled fast asleep between my legs. Eventually, my colleague managed to coax the snake away with a stick. On the trip back, with bollocks and tacks, I was ruthlessly mocked with innuendos that could only be expected by having a large black serpent between your legs. So, having scared 3 goats after death and repatriated the chicken back to the local village, I thought to myself, Tony, only in Africa." However, I reassured him that the snake infestation was just as prevalent in Queensland, and that I was never falling asleep ever again. Before Africa, we were living in Western Australia. That's where I was born. One of Dad's jobs was the installation of ground satellite technology that could monitor Chinese atomic weapon testing. Dad was at Aldermaston at the AWE, the Atomic Weapons Establishment, responsible for the design, manufacture, and support of warheads for the UK's nuclear deterrent. So there had always been a suspicion that Dad's postings had been a front for many, quote, "other," end quote, jobs. But he quite rightly would never reveal anything. He wore many hats. Shirley screams, "Come on, Brian, you can climb, it's easy." My beloved sister is about 10 feet up the tree. I'm struggling to get up the trunk. Suddenly, Shirl has taken a branch, and a massive snake has dropped not 1 foot away from my feet. Fortunately, the Zambian gardener, Samuel, had seen my siblings' attempt on my life, comes sprinting over, and with a rake held overhead, and after several strikes later, kills the venomous beast. I look up and realize that Shirl must have taken a life insurance policy on me. The ink hadn't even dried, and the first attempt had been made. Do the deed, make the claim, buy lots of sweeties. Her addiction was getting out of control. I would have to be on my guard from now on, not accept free ice cream, unless it has been tested on Daniel first. For work, sometimes Dad would have to travel out to the mines on a small plane being flown by an eccentric World War II fighter pilot who had long forgotten that the war was over. Dad and his colleagues used to dread it when visiting dignitaries came to visit, as this was the perfect excuse for the handlebar mustachioed airman to relive his air battles against the dreaded Hun. Most were sick, as he did the loop-de-loop and death roll. Dad and those in the know would numb themselves with a few stiff drinks before the flight out. Sometimes the whole bottle was required, especially if it was someone really important. Dad's stuck in traffic. It's hot, very hot. The African sun is beating down. Dad winds down the window and sighs to himself. His secretary has been sexually molested and robbed again, in the local township. Happens most days. As soon as she finishes work, she's attacked. Dad, horrified, offers a team to go in and sort it out. The secretary refuses. They're gangsters, so many. You'll all be killed, she says. As the warm air starts to circulate through the car, a man pulls over and pulls a weapon. He's being carjacked. The gangster jumps into the passenger seat and says, "Take me to your home." Dad utters, "No problem," and starts to think. The large gate is locked, so Tony tells the bandit, "You will need to get out and open the gate." As the man opens the car door, Dad gives him a push and floors the accelerator, smashing the man in the car door into the side of the wall. Problem solved. The man escapes, bleeding and badly injured. 1 month later, we leave Zambia. Within 3 years, our golden wall grew from 4 feet high to reach 12 feet, accompanied by guards and dogs. Such is the quick descent of an African country. After we left, the next resident and his family, also from Dad's company, were murdered in a most heinous fashion in the very same house that 3 months later. Revenge a possibility, or just Africa? No one ever found out. That was the risk all the expats and their families were taking every day. Sometimes you paid the ultimate price for seeking adventure. Zambia was starting to rapidly crumble. The local population, with the usual government assistance, was turning against the expats. Leaving immediately was a good option, especially if life preservation was important to you. As the plane left the makeshift dirt runway, we would say goodbye to Zambia one last time. I was quite relieved not to have been killed by either the marauding, machete-wielding locals or my plotting sister. After all, I was quite keen to see in my 6th birthday.